So while we're letting the no-baked baked beans cook in the background, we're going to start our cilantro slaw. And as you can see, this head of cabbage has been sitting in my fridge for a little bit. I did stock up in my refrigerator because of COVID-19. So it has been sitting in there a while, but don't be discouraged. All you have to do is peel those pieces off, break them off, and get to a place where you feel comfortable. We're going to just cut off the stem and then cut it right down the middle. And we're going to use half of this cabbage, leaving the rest of the cabbage intact. Now, this cilantro slaw requires a pretty thin slice on my mandolin, so I'm just going to cut this in half one more time. So I have 2/4. And I have the setting on this to about 2/10 of an inch, so very, very thin. It's about as thin as you can make it. That's how I prefer my coleslaw, personally. In my book, if you keep it thin, you can have more dressing on it, and it's just more delicious. So we're just going to slice that. If you don't have a mandolin, you can go to, well, when things get moving again out there in the real world, you can pick one up at a yard sale for $1. This one I actually got at a thrift store for, I think I spent a whole $2 or $3 on it. So they're pretty easy to find, and they're pretty cheap. And that's what our cabbage will look like. Get that in our bowl. The other thing we're going to work with is cilantro. And again, I did some shopping a while back, and I've used up most of my cilantro. And cilantro is a very key component to this particular dish. And as you can see, I really only have stems left with a couple leaves. Fortunately for this recipe, that's okay. The beautiful thing about cilantro is you can actually use the stems. It's nice to have just the leaves, but when you doing budget and batch cooking, you want to make sure that you're using what's in the fridge. We've got actually quite a bit of flavor left in this cilantro, so we're just gonna get that nice and chopped, nice and small, almost shredded. So the next thing that we need for our cilantro slaw is our lime. And what we're going to do is just cut off either end of that. I'm just going to give it a little roll with your hand to get it pre-juiced. I'm just going to cut that right down the middle. So you have two beautiful halves. We're going to take our squeezer. You can always go by hand. And then we're just going to take our nice mixture and get that cilantro and the cabbage all mixed up. And we're going to add half of that lime just straight into the cabbage. And we're going to use the other half of the lime in the dressing itself. So we're going to just give that a little toss and let that sit for a little bit while we're making our dressing. That'll really increase the brightness of the salad. Now typically I would have a lot more cilantro in there because I mean our family loves cilantro. In fact, we call this lovingly crack slaw because it's so addictive and delicious. Now for our dressing, I've already got half a cup of sour cream, half a cup of my favorite Hellmann's mayonnaise. Okay. And then we're going to do the other half of the lime into there. Now remember, if you're doing budget cooking and you can't afford fresh limes and lemons, they can be expensive. You can always use lime juice in a container. Much, much cheaper. Then we're also going to take our 2 cloves of garlic. I'm going to put that in my garlic press. If you don't have a garlic press, that's fine. Just chop it, mince it really, really, really well. Just keep mincing it until you get a really nice, smooth texture. And we're also going to add onion. And of course, a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper. I'm just going to mix that right up. And that's it. That is your dressing for your cilantro slaw. Just give it a little taste. Yum. That's it. Then we have our beautiful mixture. It's got our lime juice on it. I'm feeling like I'm not going to use all this dressing on this batch because we had a smaller head of cabbage. So I'm going to start with about 3/4 of it. Just going to smear it like that. I'm going to use tongs to give it a good mix. So there is your beautiful creamy cilantro slaw. We're ready to go. Last thing that we need for our meal is our cornbread. And I already had some cornbread that was in the freezer from another barbecue meal just a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to do a little bit of cheating tonight and not make cornbread fresh. I'm going to make maybe inch and a half thick. And there's only 3 in our family, so this is a perfect amount. And we're going to pan fry this with a little butter and a little olive oil. Alright, you all know the drill here. We're actually going to get our cornbread freshened up a little bit. We're going to use olive oil this time. A little more generous than we did for the eggs the other day. And our pat of butter this time is going to be a little more generous also because we're really trying to make that cornbread pop back alive. My temperature is also a little bit higher. I'm going to turn that down a bit. Let's start with about half of that, see how it goes. And we're just going to start adding our cornbread in there. Alright, we're going to flip these over and add a little bit more butter. Look at that nice golden crisp. Perfect. Beautiful.